Okay, so this is the boss fight against the doppelganger, which is very easy, and it has to be as such because revealing those lights by hitting them can be very awkward when you're fighting the auto aim at times, and also with Dante's soft lock when he's attacking. But just to go on some other tangents right now, I've been taking the time to browse the Devil May Cry wiki, and I've also been taking the time to rewatch the anime, and I have some things to voice right now. So in the anime, Dr. Fisher mentioned that demons are a related but separate evolutionary branch from Homo sapiens. They're basically natives of another universe, one that exists parallel to our own, and his current hypothesis is that one of our common ancestors found their way into this other universe, where they adapted and became stronger, able to survive the more hostile environment. I feel like they provided this explanation in order to explain how Sparda had sexual intercourse with Ava in order to sire Dante and Virgil. To my knowledge, the games never really elaborate on how it's possible for a demon to mate with a human, and relating this to another point, the games don't really explain what demons are exactly, and the exact origins of demons is entirely inconsistent. Some demons are spirits that possess physical objects or elements, like with the marionettes, Sin Scissors, and Cyclops from Devil May Cry 1. Enzo even describes a rumor regarding this point in the anime, which was meant to be a callback to the Devil May Cry 3 manga, with how the White Rabbit was originally a possessed kid's toy. Of course, I do question how enemies like the Shadows and Plasmas exist in Devil May Cry 1 if they're not possessing physical objects or possessing physical elements. Like, electricity isn't as physical as rocks, for example. Then with Devil May Cry 2, certain demons like the Siras and the Finest demons were once humans who were consumed by evil in some way. Devil May Cry 3 then had the 7 different hell enemies that had to use sand as a medium to manifest in the human world. And then in Devil May Cry 4, certain insect-like demons called Tripoxylus animated these scarecrow enemies. Some demons were even bioweapons, which is still so odd for me to consider in a fantasy game. Mundus literally created the Blades, Frost, and Nightmare in Devil May Cry 1. The Leviathan in Devil May Cry 3 is also considered a bioweapon as well, which I find puzzling to comprehend. And then Agnes made artificial demons in Devil May Cry 4, like with the Gladius, Basilisk, and Cutlass, by magically combining animals with weapons, apparently, which is confusing. Certain demons in Devil May Cry 5 were even created by fusing a devil arm with a host, like with Artemis being created through a fusion with Mary. And then certain demons like Nevin and Echidna looked almost human with their appearances for some reason. There were even demons that fell from grace for lying and deceiving their victims, like with the Fallen in Devil May Cry 3, which is such an odd origin when demons are considered inherently evil in the games. Falling from grace might as well be applied to all demons, so they should all look like the fallen enemies then, but they don't. I mean, there were demons that masqueraded as humans and gained status in criminal underworlds. What do you think criminals do to victims? Falling from grace is an understatement. Demons might seem honorable at times, like with Cerberus, but being honorable doesn't necessarily mean a sense of goodness is there. There are countless examples of evil yet honorable characters in various media. Do you see what I mean? Some of these demons seem like ghosts or spirits, others were originally human but magically corrupted by evil, some were bioweapons, and then you have physical demons appearing as well, like with the bosses you fight. I think it's clear that this level of variability in the demons isn't really based on story reasons. Given the leniency provided by the fantasy genre, the developers probably used this as an excuse to come up with all sorts of weird demons, since they knew players would focus more on having a wide assortment of different looking demons to fight. The story points behind these demons were probably conceived at the tail end of development with the games, which is probably why the anime made Dr. Fisher mention this hypothesis on certain demons, a hypothesis that would probably be off-putting to certain Devil May Cry fans. So this was going to be a point of contention in the anime thanks to the inconsistent origin of demons in the games, an inconsistency likely related to the fantasy genre as I described before. But onto another tangent, I do find it odd how they say it's 2,000 years ago when Sparda separated the human and demon worlds, because then you're excusing the before Christ era and ancient times, which we have a documented history on. Why would the developers choose that time frame to have Sparda rebel against the demons? Why not have it be way further back? What do regular people in the Devil May Cry universe study regarding the BC era if demons seemingly ruled during that time? Why do people question if Sparda existed or not when his major feat was 2,000 years ago? That's one of the most confusing points in the Devil May Cry series. Nice. But we're coming up on the boss fight against the Doppelganger, which is very simple. It's just a shame you can't really kill him quickly unless you have Royal Guard and Devil Trigger Explosion. I know there's a whole mechanic where you can play like ping pong with him and just keep knocking back his Shadow Ball until eventually he gets damaged, but I don't really see the point in it. That's not what I wanted to do, game. Stop prioritizing that, get him! Need to charge my Devil Trigger Explosion right now. I'm just glad you can do this, because it's just so awkward fighting the auto-aim when you're trying to prioritize the light fixtures. Come and get me. Just one more. There we go. Very simple. Has to work that way because, again, the auto-aim can mess with you, and there are also some pretty awkward mechanics as well. So Mission 18 is the boss rush chapter of the game, so it's where you get the chance to refight the bosses. But the first thing you gotta do every single time you start this mission is do the chessboard sequence, where you have to get rid of the king so that all the other pieces get destroyed. I don't really understand why they decided that was a good idea. It's just a massive inconvenience for those who are enthusiastic to fight the bosses again. Why would you not just reserve the boss rush for its own chapter? That doesn't make any sense. At least in Devil May Cry 4, they rectified this a bit by removing any kind of tedious sequence before the bosses. However, you did have to fight the bosses in a preset order, whereas in Devil May Cry 3, you could fight the bosses in any order you so choose. You just had to kill 3 of them. The 3 bosses you had to kill were Cerberus, Agni and Rudra, and Beowulf. The other bosses are optional. And also, this right here is a great example of how inconsistently portrayed Hell is, because this is yet again another change in the aesthetic. Like, this aesthetic to Hell is vastly different to Devil May Cry 1's Hell and Devil May Cry 2's Hell. And I do wonder if the reason why Hell looks as such right here is to tie back to Devil May Cry 1 with Mundus' area looking a bit more like your typical place of worship. Because Mundus is still the ruler of Hell at this point, and Virgil even fights Mundus at the end of this game. And why does that look like a heart right there? Just a stone heart with all the different blood vessels attached. That's what it looks like to me. I get Evil Within 1 vibes just looking at this, because at the end of chapter 15, when Sebastian is falling through the ruins of Crimson City, and just before he falls onto that brain, the background that you're seeing looks very similar to this, only in Evil Within 1, it's yellow, whereas here it's silver. But that's my theory on the matter, and I'm not really sure what this tear in that stone structure is right there. You know, I don't think there's supposed to be any story moments with the way Hell is portrayed. I feel like in this generation of gaming, developers didn't really think about story before designing areas and enemies. So they just kind of chose an aesthetic that likely links back to Devil May Cry 1 and also gives some kind of different vibe to Hell. I don't know. Must be that. Well, let's just begin this sequence. So the way to do this sequence is you've got to only prioritize the king, and the king dies in about 3 to 4 hits from your release whenever you have a fully charged Royal Guard. And the best way to charge your Royal Guard is to parry the queen, because whenever you parry the queen's attack, it recharges your Royal Guard very quickly. I'm also going to try to stay in the air a bit longer and avoid the enemy attacks by using Beowulf's Killer Bee function. You're not entirely safe when you do this, because the knights can still hit you when they jump, or when they hit you with their horn. And that's very dangerous. I nearly got hit just then. I've got to try to get the enemies away from the king. Come on. Watch out for the sorcerers. They're very dangerous. The camera's not helping me because I'm not facing in the right direction. But I got to get the queen to prioritize me. That's 2. I've got to hit an active enemy so that the queen will prioritize me. It's done. You can do the sequence in about 2 minutes, but for the most part, a lot of the times the enemies will double trigger and it just takes so long to do. I got very lucky just then. It's just a really tedious section, and it's really dumb with the way the enemies push each other around, and then the number of times the enemies attack you from off camera, and then you have the bishops doing their laser attacks, you have the sorcerers doing their attacks. A lot can go wrong, and it's just very awkward. But now we're on the boss rush, and like I said, you only have to kill a minimum of 3 bosses, and the 3 bosses you have to kill are Cerberus, Agni and Rudra, and Beowulf. Yeah, I had to hold circle the entire time. At least in this game, Royal Guard actually serves a purpose. In Devil May Cry 4, Royal Guard is the most useless style in the game when you're playing as Dante, because Royal Guard takes ages to charge, and the damage from Royal Guard is pitiful compared to Devil May Cry 3's Royal Guard. Not even the additional ability with Royal Guard called Dreadnought, where Dante generates this armor around himself that causes him to move slowly, but he takes no damage, and he's able to do his normal functions. Not even that ability is useful in Devil May Cry 4, and the length of time for Dreadnought is entirely dependent upon the amount of charge in your Royal Guard gauge, and because it takes ages to charge up the gauge, you never get the opportunity to capitalize on the benefits of Dreadnought before it runs out. It's completely useless. And I haven't gotten the chance to utilize Royal Guard in Devil May Cry 5 yet because I haven't gotten to the part where you play as Dante, so I have no idea if Devil May Cry 5's Royal Guard is useful or not. That helps. That might be a good opening to use Royal Guard to speed this up. But having mentioned Devil May Cry 4, can I just say that I don't understand how to utilize Dante properly in Devil May Cry 4. It just feels like a lot of the enemies that you're dealing with are better suited to Nero, and Dante just doesn't have the same level of capabilities as Nero when it comes to dispatching the enemies efficiently. And I know people like to use Real Impact, which is that Sword Master move tied to the Gilgamesh, in order to deal with the enemies quickly. It's just I haven't found a good opportunity to do so, and I've been playing the game on Hell in Hell mode instead of Dante Must Die difficulty, because in all honesty, guys, I don't really see a difference between Dante Must Die difficulty and Hell in Hell mode in Devil May Cry 4. I even asked one of my subscribers which difficulty is harder in Devil May Cry 4, and he said Hell in Hell mode, so I've been using Hell in Hell mode as the baseline difficulty for assessing the game's quality, and I gotta say, guys, I don't find Devil May Cry 4 to be as good as Devil May Cry 3, and I feel like it's hard to explain right now the problems I have with Devil May Cry 4, so I'll reserve that for the playthrough instead. Can you hit him, please? What the hell? And why did I lose my Royal Guard? That was stupid. I don't know why I lost Royal Guard. Okay, so I'll fight Beowulf next. Poor timing, because the camera messed with me. I got distracted by the camera change, and so it messed with my timing. So a couple of other things I learned while scrolling through the Devil May Cry wiki is that apparently the Force Edge, Rebellion, and Yamato were all created as a way for Sparda to divide his power. The Force Edge becomes the Devil Sword Sparda when the two amulet halves come together, and the Rebellion becomes the Devil Sword Dante when Dante stabs himself whilst also absorbing the energy from the Devil Sword Sparda. I do question why when Virgil stabbed himself with Yamato, it didn't become something new like the Devil Sword Virgil, for instance. I know that Yamato can separate the demon from the human, while the Rebellion unites the two cells together, but still though, I question why the Yamato hasn't shown its true power yet. And speaking of Sparda, you can actually play as him in Devil May Cry 1 if you select that special game mode, and I didn't even realize at the time that was Sparda. I thought it was Virgil because he looks so similar to Virgil, and the fact that he has the Yamato sword and also the Devil Trigger, that's why I initially thought that was Virgil you were playing as, and it got me confused, but that's literally how Sparda looks in his human form, and I'm guessing that's just a manufactured human form, not like a genuine human form he had, because, you know, demons have the ability to masquerade as humans as well. And by the way, can I just say how strange it is that Nero somehow came to be, and that Virgil is apparently his father, and so therefore Dante is Nero's uncle? How exactly did Virgil give birth to Nero when his pursuit of power would have prevented him from thinking about the idea of mating with a human? And apparently Nero was found as a baby by Credo and Kyrie's family at Fortuna, and he was raised under their care, but that doesn't explain why Virgil suddenly decided to mate with a human. It's a bit odd. And even Dante didn't know about Nero's bloodline until he saw the way Yamato reacted with Nero. There we go. Yeah, there we go. That's how you do it. What a fun boss fight, even though it can be pretty awkward with the camera changes. Because the camera can make it awkward to see what he's doing at times. Not for Agni and Rudra. Oh, that was close. Oh, shit! I don't know why he recoiled just then. Ah, I wasted Royal Guard, damn it! I got too excited just then, so I thought I could finish him off quickly. You gotta mash the jump like crazy, because he's going to attack you the second he gets out of the cutscene. And it's so dumb. And he got caught on the geometry, it looked like. That was weird. He keeps doing that one attack. I don't know why. That threw me off a bit. With him just spamming that one attack. At least going through that was more exciting than the next mission coming up. The next mission coming up is the worst mission in the game by far.